The following podcast is an RMG Media production.
It's time we go beyond the handshake. It's time we deepen business relationships and take it to the next level of cultivating and building relationships past that business card exchange and beyond the initial handshake. Welcome to Beyond the Handshake, where we will take a deep dive into getting to know businesses and business owners, why they do what they do in business, what drives them to success, why they work so hard, what they struggle with, what they succeed in, and tips they have for other businesses to learn from their experiences. I am Lucy Miller, founder and CEO of Women Connect. Let's go beyond the handshake. All right. Well, we are here today on the Beyond the Handshake podcast, and I'm so excited. I've got twin sisters, badass business ladies, growing a huge aesthetics business. I'm just really excited to have y'all here.
Yes. Thank you so much for having us.
Yes.
We really appreciate it.
Yep. It's going to be so fun.
Right back at you on what you've built. Women Connect is unbelievable.
It's so cool. So cool. Well, I want to talk about how y'all started your company. We're going to get into marketing, pricing, all sorts of good stuff, how you grew your business so fast. So I read you hit 1 million in like 12 or 13 months and way beyond that now.
Yeah.
So, wow.
It's crazy to think it's been about 3 years, and it is wild to take a second to smell the roses, which I tell her we need to probably do more often.
Yes,
every now and then. Do that. But yeah, do you want to go? Or do you want
to go ahead?
Tell me how you shifted from your corporate arena jobs to co-founding it and what that looks like as sisters and all the fun stuff you're doing.
Yeah. So the story, which is the same one, and it's kind of a good one. Mary was in the medical aesthetics world, was working in a med spa, had been for a few years, and just noticed A, the lack of availability, B, just like, why don't we just, there's something saying you can't do this mobily. And so I was working at HCA Corporate here in Nashville and had a wonderful career with them in leadership and GPO, just all kinds of different things as a nurse. And she came to me and was like, we should do Botox on the side. And she was very excited.
I was also, and my background is also in anesthesia.
Oh yeah. She's a CRNA. Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. And was very, and I was like, no, I don't want to do that.
No, thank you.
I just have to say, HJ it was very demanding, a lot going on there. And so then eventually, of course, I was like, fine, because we do everything together. And it just took off like, we just noticed the gap in pricing. Nashville pricing is absolutely insane. And, and Botox is expensive, but at the same time, it was just so much. And then availability, people having to drive into Nashville to get the services. And in 2022, there wasn't a med spa in every corner. Like it was less than it was now.
So you saw the gap in, you all were going to be more mobile.
Yes, we were 100%
everybody else
mobile.
Was, stationary. Okay.
Yeah. Well, we both had a space, I think, in our home. You were definitely more mobile.
Yeah.
I ended up pretty quickly because my neighborhood, I lived out in Bellevue. My neighborhood, it was very condensed and very much our target, moms. It was essentially always our, right? It was just always we were never trying to target, super high end clientele. That just isn't our jam. And so my neighborhood was just chock full of them basically. And then when I posted in our group, our neighborhood group, I was like, I just didn't even think that it would be a thing. I was like, hey guys, I'm a nurse, I've been here for a few months. Like, I'm going to be offering Botox in the neighborhood. Like, I'll come to you, or I set up a room in my home,
They were like, where do I sign?
They were so excited that they could go down the street, or I would just hit house after house. It was phenomenal. So to make a long story short, we saturated very quickly. We invited in an attorney as our third partner, which was because I couldn't pay her, to be quite frank with you. And it's medicine. So compliance and foundational aspects of the business are why we were able to grow and scale as quickly as we did. And there's several factors. Mary immediately was like, we got to train people better. Like these nurses, the other nurses, these trainings suck. My training sucked. Like we gotta make this better.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah. And the strategy's changed over the couple years, of course, as we've, because it, like you said, initially mobile was the idea. And then that's kind of shifted quite a bit. But yeah, it just, having two brains that are very similar yet specialize in different areas worked extremely well. And a great team now, the team that's just consistently grown to match what we hope for in a culture. We do have one man on staff.
There's a male.
There's Ariel.
Two now.
Oh, that's right. We have two.
We have two now.
Gotta love the guy.
I know. Bless
they're
him.
sweet.
I know.
Supporters.
It's great. It's great. Hey, we're opening a men's med spa at the end of this year. So
Are you really?
It works out. Yeah.
We're
How
excited.
interesting.
Yeah.
Are there such things out there?
Not really.
There's a
So-
few around the country, but not, there's
No.
some men that's more targeted towards wellness that some urologists might have, but
Right.
not like a men's focused, design is centered
Mhm.
around,
Yeah,
more
they
manly.
need, yeah.
Yeah, and just even the look of it, kind of.
That's what I mean. Yeah.
Where's
Speakeasy
that going
cigar
to be?
bar,
Or-
right in Sylvan Park,
Downtown.
Yeah, right downtown, right just outside of downtown. So yeah, we're excited about that. We bought a building and we're renovating it, and we're tearing it down and rebuilding it, right there in Sylvan Park, across from Ripson Park. So we're excited about that. That should be coming. We were slated to open about mid-October, so we'll see as the construction happens.
That's really exciting.
Mhm.
Yes, it'll be a new venture and a new.
I mean, the same venture, just different.
it's just different.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Different marketing, different
Right.
clientele,
It's different-
different. Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah.
Well, so you all obviously have grown really fast. You
Mm-hmm.
went from being mobile, the two of you, to, was it 9 med spa
Mhm,
locations
mhm,
now?
mhm.
And so what were some of your tactics for that growth? Because it doesn't just happen overnight. So you mentioned training well.
Mhm.
You were looking for, basically you looked for pockets where
Right.
there was needs for
Right.
it.
So 2 things. One, we have the side of our business that is the brick and mortars, and then we have a platform which is what our mission of the company really is
Mhm.
so that medical providers can own and operate their own businesses and
Love
not
that.
be beholden to, quite frankly, physicians or just people that are out to be just that antiquated medicine arena type, which is a lot of times a physician, to be quite honest with you. And nurses can own and operate their own businesses, and they have this skill set in terms of personality and being type A and
Right.
a lot of our providers that are on our platform are like trauma nurses and ICE because they're just very like da-da-da-da. They just didn't get the skill set in school. I mean, we're essentially taught a trade. Don't even know what an LLC is or how to do
Mhm.
taxes, not a sniff of business in nursing
Right.
school.
And no medical aesthetics.
no
Advocating.
medical
I'm
aesthetics.
advocating for that to be added into our
Curriculum change.
curriculum.
Mhm.
One class on medical aesthetics would be great.
Because nurses are the ones, almost every state, pretty much the whole country, and RN or above. So you see a lot of people who are not licensed medically performing procedures that shouldn't be, but neither here nor there. So we created basically the platform to help them. I have a very business operational mind. That's what I did for HCA. And so we created hey, here's how you make an LLC. This is why this makes sense. Like, here's an EMR, a medical director. We have the most wonderful medical directors across several states, and they're the people we want. They're the type of provider we're looking for. So we created the platform, and that's really what got off.
It kind of funded,
Yeah.
if you will, or supported the med spas. And then we kind of flipped the script a little bit on the strategy, and that's kind of where we're at now. But still, they just, in order to get it going as fast as we could without taking on, a bunch of capital or something, that was kind of what did, because the overhead on that was a little bit lower, at least starting out. We've added to what we give them and stuff now, which I'm very proud of all they can get in the community and all that stuff.
like business in a box type stuff. And
Yeah.
we don't fee them to death. We don't even have a fee. Like we just really are dedicated to helping them get off the ground without starting out their business, paying
the hole.
some doctor $3,000 a month to do nothing when they're doing the business. So, but to really answer your question, it was the foundation. Sorry, it was the foundational pieces. Like, I'm an SOP person. We both are really, like, making sure we had things set financially. I mean, everything from just making sure you have an LLC open, just to make sure you're
And then
doing your
solid
finances
and solid training, better training, and then solid marketing.
Yeah.
Which is kind of where my piece of it.
So from their perspective, what are things that you feel like they need the most to improve and grow? So like, obviously you help them with marketing and you're leading them on how to run the business, but like, what are some of the pieces that are missing maybe?
I mean, I'll automatically go to, if you, even for the business though, the training, like the clinical piece of it and making sure that you're protected, there, and you're doing things correctly and not hurting anybody, because that's the fastest way to that. And the easiest, I would argue, way to ruining it all. And so that's the biggest passion of mine. And then, it's really just the skill set of doing the basic business stuff. That then, yes, becomes a little more advanced as you go, but even just starting out foundationally, putting the foundation there. And that's the piece that I think is what helps them be the most successful, is like when you start right instead of having to backtrack.
Right.
Yeah. And then I think nurses are just inherently not used to, and all medical providers selling something, right? Like we're in
and
a
we shouldn't
hospital.
be. I have my spiel on this. This is where we're so good together.
Yeah.
Because
I love it.
I hate referring to me recommending your what I think you need as selling, when in reality, that's exactly what it is.
You're
it's just
recommending. It's
It's
professional
FDA
opinion.
approved dosing and it's medicine, it's prescription medicine, but the industry demands that it's you're selling them something.
Well, you have to. You have to make you have a business, and it's the same for a family practice business or anything. They do have insurance involved, but they have their own set of guidelines that we just kind of don't talk about. And for whatever reason, in the medical aesthetics industry, we let budget and stuff become part of the conversation in the beginning, and I am desperately trying to get away from you telling me you only want 20 units of Botox because your budget is only $200. That's fine. I can respect your budget, but I'm going to tell you what I think you need. And then we can talk about what
maybe you should save some more money to get what you need.
Instead of
we wouldn't do half the insulin. I mean,
that's what I equate it to. Like, I only want half a syringe of lip filler. And it's like, well, that's not what I recommend. And here's the why behind it. And you wouldn't ask for half your blood pressure pill. Like, it's just interesting because it is prescription medicine. And we don't see it. I don't think society views it like that, the consumer.
Well, so kind of on that topic though, I feel like I see different things of it's this much a unit, and you see all these different pricing out there. And I know we talked about this when we chatted recently, the whole getting away from selling just on that initial price because you might just be getting a hopper.
Yeah, and we play into that but I argue it's a force still because the industry, that's how it started and that's how it is. And to move away, you'll see people try to price per area and do things a little different. That's the shift I'm talking about or I talk about selling a session instead of a syringe. Like, do you have the cheeks that you love? This cheek session with me is this price. It's not so much, I only want 2 syringes. Like, you have no idea what you want because you have no idea about, the stuff that you need to know how much syringes you need. So I don't want to be like, well, it's a budget thing. And it's like, well, it is a elective cosmetic procedure and we do not have to have it as much as we want it. And so that should just not be a part of the conversation until the very end, at which point can we cater to it or not and not change my recommendation because I shouldn't be changing my recommendation based on a budget. I just shouldn't.
When it comes to the injectables, for sure. I mean, I think there's some very
same thing for devices and
But the injectable piece is the big, like, you can budget down to, yes, we recommend 3 like microneedling treatments, but if we can only get 2, then there's a lot of value in that. That's a little bit different than taking half the injectable.
There's exceptions. There's
Right.
exceptions to everything,
but pricing appropriately is key. I'm a big fan recently of doing, I call them hopper deals, at the right time. So if you look at your business and you say Botox, by example, and this is any business, you have the majority of your, a lot of us are cyclical. So you have the majority of your sales, majority of your clients are in this 6-week period. Well, then have them. And then 3 weeks later, that's when you do your short little hopper flash sale. And you don't hit the majority of your clients. You hit this because you don't want to not get the hoppers because they still bring in value.
They're there.
They're there. I mean, like someone's taking them.
Yeah, they're no matter how much we educate and how much they're there.
And providing the values, they come back.
Exactly. And then trying to get them like, I'll give you the same hopper deal in 3 months if you come back. And then, in our industry, if someone visits you twice, the odds of loyalty go up exponentially. So, there's ways to price appropriately and to do those things that don't ever ignore any one segment. It's more, how can you, strategically make sure that they come in and you do, and you do capture as much as you can.
Do the individual providers, do they run their own like email marketing systems and things like that to stay in the loop with people that are either hopping in or they're, regulars? Is that something that they're doing?
Hopefully.
Yeah. Well, so we
so much about that with people. The importance of it.
We give them as much as we can. Straight from like our own marketing, our own internal marketing team for our brick and mortars and stuff. And then some of our partners have integrated some email stuff and different things into their platforms, which is nice, which is currently free. But in terms of do all of them do it?
That's probably the biggest fail, I would say, of any.
Yeah. It's anyone. It's trying to teach them the value of the spend here for the longer gain over here, right? And the acquisition spend so much more expensive than the retention, but you got to spend the acquisition spend to get the retention. So it's just, that's tough. And it's tough for these businesses starting out because med spa starting out, we argue is fairly inexpensive actually, not, especially mobile. your overhead can be really low, but it's still like for some reason,
I mean, Meta's free.
seems really high.
It is interesting
to them.
But I think it's also one of my biggest rubs with everybody in medical aesthetics. It's a lot of it's a medical provider thing due to a lack of knowledge and experience in business, is the expectation to be or make money immediately in a business. And I'm like, okay, it's not that you can't necessarily, but understanding that, I made $500 this month. Well, every bit of that $500 should be going into marketing. And they just, I'm losing money. It's like, no, you're not. That marketing
business.
Yeah, that ROI on that 500 is going to be 6 months from now, like probably up to 6 months from now. And that's where it goes back to A, why were we more successful? And B, what do we try to teach them? Like even a cash flow, like just because you have you made $3,000 today, wonderful. But if you cash flow that out on what we're going to need to buy our next product, to do some marketing, to you didn't really make a whole lot, especially if you're getting started. And I think that is, I've so many of them been going at it for a year, and I mean, I broke even. I'm like, wow, congratulations. That is fantastic. Well, I barely paid myself anything. Even you took money out of the business, even better. That is unbelievable. Like that is not how business works. And this industry, and again, it's because of an inherent lack of education that is the fault of like the system to medical professionals as it relates to business. That's my platform. She talks about training and all that. And I'm like, man, we got to get a business course. Like, literally, what is an LLC and why should we have one?
That's what we did. We added it to our training almost right away.
Yeah,
but I think it's just a shell shock to people, because especially healthcare providers, because we go into the hospital and, Carla says this all the time, drop something or whatever, and it's no big deal. We just get another one. But then all of a sudden you drop that something, and that is, even if it's 10 cents or $1 to you, it's like, ooh. And you really
yours.
Understand very quickly how that stuff adds up, and every little thing that you do, down to how you drive somewhere, everything matters. And she says death by 1,000 paper cuts all the time for $1 here, $1 there, 50 here, 50 there. It doesn't really matter. It can.
I bought lunch on my business yesterday, and I'm like, why? That $12 was $1 a day ad that you literally probably could have got a client.
Oh, I love this. And I love this. Oh, well, I need to expense it off. Are you going to, you only need expenses if you're actually going to make it.
Because my tax account said to put all that on the business. I'm like, okay, let's talk about like, it's just an inherent misunderstanding.
Yeah.
Nurses are just, we just like, I even relate it back to patient satisfaction in the hospital, with which you lose money on, right? If you don't have CMS will dock a hospital. And that just doesn't hit home to nurses. They hate it. You want to have a good experience, but you're also more worried about taking care of the patient. Well, now that Google review, that's a 1, can end you. And so it's like, now you see, but you didn't feel it in the hospital because we paid the bill when you were a jerk. But now you can't do that anymore. So it's just a transition. Let me tell you. I mean, it's just a transition.
To fail.
From a business perspective.
Well, it's the employee mindset versus the business
100%.
mindset.
It is
so different.
Yeah.
I feel like it, when I started, my company, I've just learned so much.
Yes.
Like the growth factor too, I wanted to ask you all, because, you all grew from, like I said, the two of you to all these locations, and your brand is important. You do a great job with it. But how do you help keep that intact as you grow larger and larger? Not only like how your providers treat their clients, but the marketing that's put out there for it.
Well, I mean, that's another kudos to having that other side of it, of those independent providers, because we're able to cherry pick people that'll fit our culture. And we've been wrong a couple of times, not so much in the actually in any of the providers that we picked for our kind of our medical providers. But it's funny, the times that we've been wrong and who we picked were people we kind of brought in from the outside that ended up not fitting. And so explain, you're probably losing some people. The independent provider platform, they own and operate their own businesses and have their own brands that are powered by Smiley. But they're very Smiley-ized because they are policies and procedures, our EMR, our training.
Powered by, I like that.
So they represent us, but they are their own brand. So when you say cherry pick,
so we just
providers that we open med spas with that are full branded Smiley.
Because plenty of them have the shock of it, and immediately you're like, well, kind of in line to potentially be hired or be hired at a med spa.
The shock of owning their own business.
Yes. Yeah. So with that being said, we keep culture at the forefront of which feeds right into the brand, obviously, of what we're talking about at our annual summit, at anything we do when we hire somebody. It's like they may be the most fabulous salesperson in the world, the most fabulous whatever, but if they don't fit our culture, then it's just
doesn't
it's
work.
been kind of an immediate. You don't always see that in interviews. Interviews are interviews, but as soon as it, we have zero threshold for it. Can be a day, it can be a week, it could be a month of it's like, nope, this is not going to work, and that's it. And that's really helped, I think, protect and keep the brand the same throughout the 3 years. Because you're right, it really hasn't changed. Not much about our brand or our culture yet has changed. I think.
What would you say is your culture? Because I've heard that described as the personality of the business. So
how would you warm, inviting.
Okay.
If you wanted to get a little educational, if you want to get over on the clinical side, the why behind everything, and then just non-sterile medical, like very warm and inviting, still a med spa, clean, kept the way it's supposed to be kept, but not so like
cozy.
Okay, you're coming in here, come into this room.
It's like a mom can I think mom come and bring your child.
Which happens all the time.
Like I think that is
like I had to do today. Bring your child. Bring your child.
Exactly.
It's fine.
Bring the kid. We in one of our spas we literally had a play area with gates and everything where they could. Just like the idea of like just warm, and we are not. It's not an unsafe place. It's a safe place to come in and not be dolled up. Like how many times you walk in other, places like surgery places in med spa space. I mean, everyone looks. I'm like, good Lord, y'all are all. We have a standard for our employees, and I'm like, y'all are all, this is terrible.
We don't mind treatment. Yeah, our employees if you get a treatment, it's not like, it doesn't have to be timed correct, like just real.
We like them. I'm like, your laser your face just got resurfaced. Great for the rest of the day, and it's funny,
Yeah.
Just trying to be chill and we represent who we are. One of my favorite compliments that Mary and I get is that we represent exactly who we are on social media. So when people meet us in person or come into a spa, you already know, and that's a successful branding, in my opinion. You already know we don't have to play too much of a character on social media. And that's important because that will, I think people try to be so prim and proper and on social media and then it just sets you up for this level of perfection that's not like
possible, right?
Not a thing. I'm like, I don't really, So
that feeds into, you hear authentic so often on social media and be authentic. And I'm like, it's the most overused trendy word right now, but it does stand true, I think. And in order to maintain both, not having to fake it on one or be something different on the social media, which is such a huge driver for medical aesthetics, unfortunately and fortunately. And to have it there the same on both makes it a whole lot easier to maintain.
If people would just turn on their phone, get on social media, and I'm not a social media person, for the record, I'm not, and just talk to it. I mean, every one of mine was like, I'm in the car driving. That's because I have this when I have the time.
Yeah.
I mean,
this is when I have time.
Yeah. And like, if you would just do that, like that's what the world wants to see. It just is what it is.
Someone
just
does.
see the real you.
Yeah. Just get out there and talk about, what your plans are for the day as it relates to your business and when your openings are. I'm like, it could be it doesn't have to be
these reels that are just done with those are fun. Don't get me wrong, but like, they don't have to be these just crazy hour-long editing or whatever. It's like,
that's any business. I don't care what you're doing or selling. Like, just talk about it.
Be real. Mm-hmm. Well, so y'all are so fun to talk to together. What's it like working together as sisters? Y'all butt heads? Is everything, you said y'all think a lot alike? What's it like? Sisters, twins, all that.
It's funny. I got asked this at the gym this morning when I was doing my my workout, and I told her that what we say to everybody, there's a difference in being just sisters and being identical twins. And trying to articulate that or explain that is everything that you ever hear about twins, which is all true. It's like, all the
not for every set of
twins. They're not even dumb.
Us.
They're not even dumb questions. Well, I think for most truly identical twins. But do you feel what she feels, or all that stuff is pretty much true without diving into it. And so it's like,
we used to buck up against it, and now we're like, we just lean into it, and we're like,
like,
do you feel her pain? I'm like, absolutely, and it's really fudging annoying.
Yeah, well, now that we're back in the same place and this close connected, it can be like, what's wrong with me? And my first thought is like, is something wrong with her? And that can explain explain what is wrong. What is wrong with with that being said, having two brains, which we still tell our providers who's starting out just like us, right? A lot of them, some of them are opening their own spaces and stuff, but some still start out mobile. And it's like, well, how did y'all go from mobile to that? It's like, there were two of us. And so some of the stuff.
Our maiden name is Smiley.
Yeah, we had some
started
easy,
in
and we're
aesthetics.
twins.
We're
In terms of like, people like to,
It was meant to be.
Yeah, we do have a leg up here. I just want to remind everybody that comparison so quickly. I'm like,
there's really not. Yeah, I mean, it's like there's just not a good. That's not a good comparison. So, yeah, it's.
I mean, we did the work, but like,
or two of you did the work.
Sure, and we do the work, but we butt heads all the time. Less so recently. I don't really know why. But with that being said, we can have a drag out fight that in the beginning, my husband would be like, so what now? And I'd look at him and be like, what are you talking about?
We're having dinner.
We're coming
We're
for
having
dinner.
spaghetti.
She'll be here. They'll be here in 10.
You mean what time are they coming over?
Like, are we going to go to trivia tonight? I'm like,
what are you talking about? Of course we're going to trivia.
And it has come between some other, employees and stuff. We have to be more mindful, and we're much better about, we have those things, or we have these tips that mean nothing to us. And when an outsider looking in, that's the end of a friendship.
The company's disbanding.
Yeah. And it's like, so we're better about that now than we used to
Trying to recognize. And then also just the longevity of the company. I mean, we haven't been blessed not having any real turnover.
Yeah, that's true.
So a lot of our people have been with us now over 2 years, and they get it.
Like, I see.
It's more entertaining.
Okay.
They just now they laugh. It used to be literally like,
oh,
now it's more they're like giggling in the background. I'm like, it's not funny.
Yeah. So it's great. It is a huge advantage with very little disadvantage.
I love that.
Yeah. And you can work with family. I mean, it's possible. Mm-hmm. I do think it's hard. I think that we're an example that you can, but I highlight the fact that the identical twin thing is special and unique, and this is not apples to apples.
But with that being said,
people.
my mother-in-law, we work with both of our sisters. My husband, all director, 2 vice presidents. We have been from the beginning, and hasn't changed yet. So I think you can work with family in a certain way, and then her and I, yes, family. But I think
the key to working with family, you didn't ask, but I'm going to say my total opinion is that if you are not able to, and you have to be honest with yourself because everyone's not, can you separate the personal and the business? Can you walk out of a place, and this, you can just look at your work. Are you able to leave work and go home and exist amongst your family and truly like not even think about it, or be happy and it not forced? And if you can do that, then you could probably work really successfully with family. If you can't, and one thing is always feeding into the other, then it's probably not going to be successful, because you have to be able to box it up and separate it and really, really work on that and be conscientious about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Y'all have pretty defined roles though within the company.
Yes.
So talk about
and that was super
strengths
important.
And
sorry to interrupt you. That because that's you're so spot on with that question, because it took us in the beginning, like it was everything is everything, just like anyone starting a business, you wear every single hat. You're the everything. And we still wear, we love, still inject on, 1 day a week or whatever. And, I tell the people, because we had someone who didn't think it was their job to, clean this or that. And I'm like, okay, we don't, that's not the culture that we operate.
The other day.
Yeah. Everyone, we may have a cleaner come, but if it's dirty, that's not the mentality that we work with. But in the beginning we didn't. And then we had the intentional conversation of defining roles, because that was one of the things that was making it more difficult to not separate, the fights seemed to be, or just the business fight seemed to be happening more. So once that happened and we, for the most part, stay in our lanes. Mm-hmm. She's a little bit more of a micromanager than I am, but that also works out well for the role that she's in as the COO. Like that's in operations and financial, you have to be. Right. Whereas I'm a little bit more laid back, just kind of shiny things excite me. I get real, that type of thing. And
see this.
Yeah. And it's the whole integrator visionary, thing.
Yeah,
and that is, we fit that. Once we found that, and for me, it was super impactful to find, it's not about titles. It's more about which role we fit.
Right.
And titles are more an outward facing, like operating agreement thing. We are much more of the integrator, like visionary type of thing. And then I think we could both do each other's role relatively well, but in terms of what we're excellent at would be those two things. And it's amazing how we fit right into that kind of EO mindset kind of thing. So
yeah. Knowing when that day is that you have to have that conversation, because in the beginning it doesn't make sense. It can, and you can set those roles if you know them.
It was hard. Sure. It was hard for me to step out of like the money and be like, to not know everything all the time. Yeah, to not know everything all the time. That was, and that's part of, just control and stuff too. But that was difficult. And I remember those few weeks of conversation of just like, well, how, like, what? How is that even? And so to your point, it's looking back now, I kind of forgotten about it. Those were like, wait, what?
Yeah. And I quit injecting and quit, I'm a phenomenal social media maker.
Yes.
But getting away from marketing and so, that was important. And then your company deserves it too. You have people who report to people, they need to know their roles. It all flows down.
Yeah. And accountability trees and stuff. It was important.
Yeah. Organizational, trees.
Yeah. Well, so what was your first hire? Who was the first hire you made to help run things?
My sweet mother.
She was first. And then my mother-in-law was second.
Yeah.
Ooh, love that.
They had their experience was just so perfect.
It really
It wasn't a mom thing, but it just was like my
it was from a cheap thing.
Well, true. Yeah, you probably.
From an affordability.
Yeah, sure. But she had her career as a chief. She of Gallatin, and then she did was a director at Nashville for IT stuff
and information officer.
Yeah, and then my mother-in-law has a career. Was part of a huge company as their office administrator and like an administrative role, which is very similar to what they do now and stuff. So it was so perfect. And then they're moms, right? So
and then
of course they supported us.
We traded equity. We gave our mom a piece of the company because it's like, I can't pay you right away. So I think a lot of people fail to realize you do not have to own 100%. It is really, don't give it away lightly. Get some advice.
Don't give away a lot.
However, like having multiple people invested in that way is very, very, can be very valuable if they're the right people. So protecting yourself with all kinds of things. I don't want to go on that TED talk right now. But, really making sure you protect yourself. But traded equity with them and had people that were willing to stand in our corner. And again, not everybody has that. Not everybody has somebody willing to work their full-time job and then help. It was critical for me at the time is really what it was, because we were setting up the platform. How are we going to, we had 20 providers in the 2 months after we started the platform. I'm like, okay, how are we going to
I had a newborn and a 2-year-old.
Yeah.
Was drowning.
Yeah. Mine were drowning. 2 and 4. It's like, or whatever it was.
Like, what a dumb idea.
Yeah.
What?
Perfect time to start a business.
No, there is no right time.
Yeah.
Love that. We're in a prime example of like, what were you thinking?
Yeah.
Well, I did not want to do that. And then marketing, we did have some, I think in the background for some of the tasks, we outsourced some of the tasks that we of course couldn't get done.
Which we're still big on recommending, what to outsource in the beginning.
Somebody made our social media posts for a while before she really got into social media. We're big bootstrappers, of course, but there became a point with which I can't, if I don't pay for this, I'm not going to go forward. Yeah.
There's I feel like in the entrepreneurial world, there's so much talk about not working in your business, work on it.
Sure.
But sometimes you can flip the switch and try to do that too fast. And you're trying to hire for too many things. And you really should have just maybe stayed a little bit longer, kept putting that sweat equity in.
Yeah.
And you're finally ready to make that.
Completely agree. I love that. I think and we, we're proponents of like, you can work on your business, the in and on, and separating the two and setting out your 4 hours of each week. If you're the CEO, you're wearing all the hats and doing all the things, especially with med spas. Make 4 hours of your admin time on Monday morning straight through, and that's what you're doing your task. And it's like, well, what about if a client wants to book? It'll show up booked on your calendar and they'll book the next morning. It's like, is that, if you feel like you need to alter your mornings, you can do that. But having those set hours to work on it and then the rest of it being in it, that'll cut down on this feeling of, needing to outsource or I don't have enough time. Well, that's because you're constantly interrupted or whatever. It's like time management skills and stuff like that are also important, which is where medical providers can once that little statement is said, can excel.
Yeah.
Because we're pretty good at managing our time. It's just like given the,
some ideas.
Yeah. Given a little bit of guidance. Yeah. Because once again, going back to, if anyone's listening to this and wants to start advocate with me for in nursing school, I'm like, there should be a semester of, medical aesthetics or business more importantly, the business that goes into it.
You need to know if you need to know if you can do it, and not that anybody can't do it, but no, they can't. Not everybody can be a brain surgeon. Not everybody can be an electrician. Not everybody can. So I think running a business is similar, and that often is a negative thought. And it's like, no, you need to know what you're good and not good at. Everybody could probably be a business owner, but running a business, working in it, working on it, there's all these facets to it. Like, I am not the marketing lead. Like we would have failed if I had been the one leading marketing this entire time. And recognizing that is not my strength is critical to the success of a business. And I do think that's why small businesses fail, most of them in the first 5 years, is because they don't recognize the points we were just talking about. When do I need to bring somebody on? who do I need to bring it on? How much more am I willing to give? Like, expectations that are out of whack. Like, are you willing to do more sweat equity? Like all these decision points in this decision tree that nobody can really overly define. I think it's really challenging, and being honest with yourself, again, to say it again, it's just so critical.
Right. I think a plug for careful who, there's so many coaches and consultants out there. So vet it's like, just because they say they've bought and sold 2 multi-million-dollar businesses or what, go vet it, because anybody can say anything. Same for all your medical aesthetic providers and everybody saying they've done this, that, and the other. We should be vetting everything when it comes to business and our bodies. So on any side. But it's such an antiquated thing to do, especially in medicine. Like just trust, the amount of trust that's out there.
The white coat said, therefore it is.
Yes.
We're bad about that.
Yes. And then I was going to say, I think it's the difference in being a business owner and then like an entrepreneur. It's like those are two different things. And I think anyone can be a business owner. But there's a difference in being a business owner and an entrepreneur. There is a difference there. And it's kind of what you just said. It's like, it's not even being just a silent owner. There's just less to this and a lot more to this. And it's kind of deciding or feeling out if you are an entrepreneur, because that is starting from the ground up. That's bootstrapping. That's all that stuff. And, business owning can be a little different. We use them synonymously, but I think of them as separate. And so what you're talking about.
I have one other point about this, and then we'll shut up, Lucy. Like, she's like, okay, shopping. I think especially in medical aesthetics, but in business as well. We use the nurse example again. They walk into a supply room and you have one choice for, a
catheter.
Bedpan, a catheter, because that's what the hospital uses. So we don't shop. Worst case immediate gratification scenario of all time, as it should be in medicine. If I need it because you're dying, well, yeah, I need it right now. And so transitioning from that, and a lot of people transitioning from immediate gratification society into one that requires the patience of shopping. And by that, I mean, just because someone comes in your door and
not for the best deal, not for the cheapest, but for the right provider, the right place, the right
vet, take the time to do that. It can feel painful because you're not producing revenue, and any non-revenue producing activity feels like you're just drowning, and it's tough. But making sure you don't fall into the first whatever it is. Well, I need a bookkeeper. The first one you talk to is just sells it on you. Well, of course they did. Let's just make sure we don't meet somebody else or somebody. You just don't know unless you take the time, and time is the most valuable asset, and it's tough to give it up. But I think you have to have a stomach for having your time be just abused by shopping, and you have to be willing to do that.
Research and shopping.
Yeah.
Well, we've not gotten to lots of my questions. We've had such great we
have a lot to say.
Another great one. But I did want to ask, what have been some of the hard things about growing this business? Because it's not all shiny and great. And we talked about some of them, but what would you say have been the hardest?
Well, I have recently, I think the bigger, unfortunately, nursing in general and then medical aesthetics specifically is it's pretty cutthroat. It's kind of what our mission was also about, is just creating this community. People love saying community over competition. And that is what we are trying to do. Like, we may have multiple people running around in Nashville, but that's the community. It's not, and if you work together, you can do events together. Millions of people in Nashville, like millions of faces. We don't have to have this huge competition. Well, with that being said, medical aesthetics is by far the worst so far in my experience. And, as we get bigger and do things and I get louder on social media or whatever you want to say and speak at places and stuff, the rocks thrown get bigger and bigger. Sorry.
So, because we're in medicine, you can throw some really big rocks. We're governed by boards and you can do things like turn people in. And recently we've been challenged with obviously false, just direct. It's like we're just getting railroaded. And they can do that and hit in a really difficult way that we'll overcome, but it doesn't make it,
and ultimately
easier.
Yeah. Saying it and tackling it, it's like, it's not a bring it on situation. It's not like a bring it on. It's more of just like saying it, speaking it, gives it less power. But that type of thing is you get more successful to make it more generalized, or your business does better. Knowing that the haters, both internal family, what this is going to happen. And then the outsiders are going to, come for you because some people have nothing better to do.
Right.
And, being kind of ready for it. And it can happen at any time. And the community is great at Smiley because when a bad review happens or a bad even a Facebook comment. Yeah. Even a Facebook comment that's just completely it has to be false. I mean, which we don't have a lot of non-false, but it's like, yeah, we just kind of like, what? I mean, and surround the person no matter where they're at in the nation, no matter which state they're operating in under Smiley. So that's part of the community that I love. And the same thing that's this happening to me, the rally and the support is super important. But knowing that can happen and come, maybe not in the form of social media or in the form of, people having done what they've done to me, but even the family and the people, you got to have a stomach for it, and it can be difficult.
Well, and as your business grows in general, there's things that, like, what I've learned is, I had a trademark battle I went through. Like I certainly didn't see that coming when I first started. And the things as your business grows that you then become larger problems, different problems than when you were just starting out.
That's a good way to say it.
And they're not expected. I mean, to get kind of specific, not related to Mary, but related to that, cash flow. I mean, like people assume, oh, you're making tons and tons of money. So, well, yeah, I'm spending tons of money too, growing this thing. And then something like a trademark battle comes out of nowhere, or a lawsuit. Oh my gosh. It's just, I'm not sitting on tens of thousands of dollars.
That would be, if you are, that is silly.
Yeah, if you are and you're growing, you're not doing something right.
Unless you're just done, you're just kind of set. Yeah, sure. But
it can be very difficult to do, to have those things, to your point. Like it comes out of nowhere sometimes, and you're not going to see it coming.
Right.
And I think that's what cripples some people in getting started, is they want to see it all coming, and so they never get going because they're obsessed with, well, what if? And
that's a big thing.
You got to have a little what if pot there, and then the rest of it, you just,
go for it.
Yeah, take it as it comes.
So what would you say to someone wanting to start their own aesthetics business or want to scale, try to do what y'all did? Like, what would be some words of wisdom that you would have?
It would be get started. I mean, I think we both stand on that big principle of like, you got the basics of getting trained, finding other people training, having some of your ducks in a row. We have a lot of rules with medical director, compliance, like those are all, I don't think need to be said. And then just going after it, and looking at those around you and getting advice. I think what we also fail to do, because it's a cutthroat in medical aesthetics, is look around you and be like, what's stopping you from walking into a med school and be like, hey, I'm really thinking about doing this on the side. Like, I just was curious
or doing a full-blown one.
Doing a full-blown med school. I was just curious if anybody would sit down and chat with me and then tell me like kind of your success story. Like,
advice,
like all the things we just said were so, I use the example all the time because it's so applicable, and it's applicable in business. Like when I was a nursing leader in a hospital, we would be on our unit or whatever in a CVICU, like drowning, right? Like it's just nuts. And then the next morning I would talk about, it was a horrendous night. Or the staff, it's a horrendous night. We were drowning all night, And I hear another leader, like in our morning huddle, be like, we sent 3 nurses home because we didn't have any staff and everything was all quiet. And I'm like, you guys forgot that you're in a world where there could have been 100 other hands, but you get so bogged down by your own immediate circle that you forget that there's this whole world out there that is willing to help you, but they just don't know you need help. No one knows you want to start a medical aesthetics company, so that spa owner is not going to come to you.
Right.
You got to go to them.
Raise your hand.
Yeah, and that's in all business. Like,
and you might get turned down, and you might get
they might
totally
say
like,
no.
absolutely not. And it's like having it's like,
no,
okay,
unless you ask.
On to the next one. And we talk about that too a lot about, a lot of the first, raising money. If you did want to do open a brick and mortar, whatever you want to do, it's like the friends and family thing. It's like, if no one knows, it's a good example of if no one knows or you never ask, you can never get told no, and you can never get told
or
yes.
You always make it look like sunshines and roses, and you don't ever express the hardships because you want to impress everybody. It's like
people are less willing to help because they don't think you need it.
Right.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think, the best advice for starting an aesthetics company is I can't help but go clinical, because the training is so important, because your license is the only license you got, and losing it is a whole lot easier than getting it back. And so the vetting and all the stuff we said earlier about that, and then, being compliant, protecting the license, like I said, and, don't what if yourself to death. It's like what she said earlier, it's, well, I don't have my credit card in, my business credit card. Well, I
haven't opened my business bank account.
My LLC, my EIN letter hasn't come yet. It hasn't come yet. And I'm just kind of like, okay, so let's evaluate. Do we want to do this? Do you want to do this? Like, because at some point it's like, if you what if yourself to death, you're going to keep doing that. You're not going to spend that dollar to get that marketing agency to help you. You're not going to do this or that. And it's going to end up crippling you. And it's going to kind of feel like it's all for nothing. Yeah. Or your first no is going to be like a or something. And so it's like, just, you just got to get out there. But to me, that's the difference in owning a business and being an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
If you want to own a business, go find one already established. If you want to be an entrepreneur, Now you're talking about starting something.
And if you can't handle no's, then just don't start. If you can't handle being told
Gotta get some no's.
yeah, then just don't start, actually, because that's not going to work out, because you'll hear no more often than yes.
Yeah. Well, I love this. I have one last question for you all. So podcast name is Beyond the Handshake. So what does that mean to you? And how do you implement that?
Oh my gosh. I'm sorry I'm tackling this because I love it, because because we have a good example of something happening right now that makes this so relevant. Beyond the Handshake, I shake hands with people and have contracts and agreements with them all day long, but we are loyal to certain companies, and we are one track on a lot of products we use because of the company, because it is Beyond the Handshake. It is the relationship that we build with them. We can lean on each other for different things. There's transparency, there's honesty. You're never not going to go back on your word. Like, whether we had Beyond the Handshake, whether we just talked on the phone, like, you take care of one another. And I think, to me, Beyond the Handshake is the relationships, and part of what I was talking about earlier with shopping, and I really didn't get there. The relationship part of who you connect with beyond the initial transaction is so critical. And I think that is relationships in business, whether that's your vendor partners or networking at a business event or whatever it is. You cannot overdo that, and you cannot be too careful in making sure you protect those, and you're going into business with the right people. It is so much more than a handshake.
Love it.
Yeah.
Perfect. Perfect description.
Good. I've got you on.
So good. Well, thank y'all so much for being on. If there is anything you want to share with the audience about how they can find you all, like follow you, tell us how they can.
Sure. So, SmileyAesthetics.com is our website. We're at Smiley Aesthetics, and there's a couple bottom dashes, but we come up with just at Smiley Aesthetics on it. And then you'll see a bunch of our med spas and stuff, but the main one's there. I'm at Injector Smiley on Instagram, and I'm working on TikTok, but Instagram mainly. And she's at C Smiley Business on Instagram, which are
Smiley_business.
Okay. We're going to put it in the show notes.
Yeah. There's a lot of
all the things.
If you put Smiley at this point somewhere on Instagram, because we have 54 accounts for different things.
Yeah, I feel your pain on that.
Super open. So, like, if people are listening and like they have questions about opening, or like, I don't know, just questions, like, we're all about send a DM, like send an email, like, we're happy to help other people. You know, that's the community thing is really, really a big deal.
So. And y'all are still growing. So you would be open to bringing on more.
Oh, yes. We have people join our platform every day. We have a grand opening for a spa here in Nashville and Franklin here at the end of the day today. So yes, we are absolutely still expanding and growing and moving and shaking.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Thank y'all. This is awesome.
Thank you so much.